All right, I believe we're live. I am gonna just quickly put the message out to some socials. I believe the Discord should have already received the notification.
Already.
I'll just go into the stream manager so I can keep an eye on the chat. Okay, I'm nearly done there. Just do Facebook and then we'll get set up. In fact, I'll open up Wonderboy now. Dead Bottle and Wonderboy.
It looks like in Twitch, it just had an announcement pop up that you and John Takiris were working on Alar City now. I guess there's still an old notification from the previous stream.
Yep, it's the stream info. I'll need to change that. I think I can change that right now, but it won't change the notification. So Scorpion Engine, say Wonderboy optimisation, and I'm going to go. Well, not sure if changing the go live will make any difference now, but I'll change it anyway. So yeah, I should have remembered to change that before the stream. Okay, so now the name of the Twitch stream should be changed to something like Scorpion Engine Wonderboy Optimization.
Yep, I see that.
So I am going to let's
Hey,
change.
Mixel.
Oh, hello Mixel. Welcome to the chat. What I am going to do is I am going to set up sort of a fictional, well, not a stock A500. It's going to be an A500 with a meg of chip and a meg of slow, because the fitting it into stock. Oh, what do we got here? Oh no. Okay, so this this is an engine bug. Game map dot export. Something about the palette. I didn't think there were any custom palettes. Maybe there was one that wasn't checked in. I should have thought to check this before the. Oh. Oh. Okay. Now that's interesting. So, wait, which map was that? That was. Okay, so we're getting some weird bugs about certain maps we can't have access to. So let's have a look at this map 28. I'm wondering if there just wasn't, if there was something not checked in. Or are these maps in some way corrupt? Okay, so all right, so it's complaining that it hasn't got. All right, so that tile, yeah, okay, so tile set is broken in a few of them. I don't know why there's a second copy of the actors.
I can. This is a guess since this is not my game project, but I can at least explain why that has happened recently in Scorpion Boy.
Yep,
And that is if you're working on two different versions of the game, you know how it's got the platform features now, so you
yep.
could simultaneously make it for two different things.
Mm-hmm.
If you edit map in one of the versions and it opens it up, and then you edit map in the other and it opens that one up too, by default it seems like tiled just then gives both projects access to both tile sets and sets of actors and everything,
Okay.
so it's super easy to use the wrong tab and accidentally use tiles from both tile sets or actors from both tile sets, and then until you fix that issue in tiled, it's going to be suddenly your project is
Mm,
referencing two different actor sheets and two different tile sets. That's actually a problem I discovered and fixed just yesterday with Scorpion Boy.
yep.
So
Okay.
it's not a fault
Well,
of Scorpion Engine at all in in the case I'm speaking of.
mm. We could possibly look at adding something so that if it detects an invalid tile set, it just sort of ignores it or removes it. But anyway, so if I remove, can I just delete that tile set?
If it's using it, it'll stuff will disappear that's needed for game design. But I think if you right click on the incorrect one, you could replace it with the good one, and then it'll actually update with the equivalent items. So on the tab under tile sets, if you right click on the bad actors one, oh no, it's not there. There was a way I did it yesterday, but I'm not
Mm.
positive. Um,
I might not have the very latest one, possibly.
Right. It could
Um,
be. That could be the issue. It
mm,
might be a feature that just isn't in your version. But I did have to fiddle around and I was groping around blindly for a solution. And then suddenly the,
mm.
replace this tile set or whatever was an option.
I'll just see
Um,
if no, so they haven't used different
Platforms.
platforms.
Yeah.
Um, but in any case, let's have a look at this Area 21 map.
Yeah.
The good thing
Uh,
about TMX is it's plain text, so you can usually
yeah,
fix a
absolutely.
lot of things.
Good old search and replace in a text editor. Yeah.
Hmm. Now,
And by the way, it doesn't have to be with different platforms in Scorpion Engine, just if you have any two maps open that use different things. So maybe that's what caused the problem in Wonder Boy. Maybe they just had two separate maps open, and because Tile just gives you access to, for any map, it gives you access to all of the tile sheets, then it's
hmm,
super easy to accidentally um, use the wrong one.
yep.
Oh, there, Acid Bottle is there. Hey, Acid Bottle. We should point out, Mike, has nothing to do with, I have nothing to do with Wonder Boy. I'm just a fellow Scorpion Engine user, and
Hmm.
Eric was nice enough to mention me, not mention me, to invite me to join on the stream. And we might get into some Scorpion Boy dev work, or at least show you guys the latest on that after we're done with a an optimization session on Wonder Boy.
Hmm.
And hi, Acid Bottle. And it looks like you're making some really nice progress once we figure out this issue. Did you see from the beginning, Acid Bottle, we're running into some issues with several of the tile maps for Wonder Boy? And
Um,
I'm wondering if this is something you ran into on your side of things as well, or is this something that's only happening on Eric's end after getting latest?
well, there's a link in the map to the actors TSX in this Wonderboy Whipmaster 05 alpha, which we don't. It's not part of the it's not part of the Git.
Yep.
It might be safe just to delete this line. My only concern is if there's any tiles that are 801 or above, and I don't think there are, but if there are, it might mean that some actors disappear. The alternate is that just delete all that and make it actors TSX. Now, what if I go back to that? That might be the safest way to manage it. So
Right.
there's still the second copy, unnecessary copy of the tile set, but because it's pointing the right place, it might be okay anyway. And so it's not giving that error anymore on that map.
Nice.
So I will need to go through each and every single map to see which other ones are have that error.
Yep.
Um,
So while you're doing that, let me explain to Acid Bottle. This is a problem I ran into and literally had to fix just yesterday while working on Scorpion Boy, because I'm working on Scorpion Boy in Scorpion Engine, but there's now two distinct platforms I'm targeting. So the game automatically, I can just export a 32 color mode in one instead of a 16 color mode, and it's got differences to the maps. Obviously it's using a 32 color tile set and 32 color blitter objects or actors, but the one issue is tiled. It's got what is, to me, I'm sure it's a useful feature for a lot of people, but for my uses it's annoying feature where if you load up one map and don't make sure that's closed and load another map, suddenly both projects have access to the actor sheets and tile sheets from both projects. And if you don't notice that, it's super easy to accidentally use the wrong actor sheet for the wrong map. And then basically you've cross corrupted your two maps now, or at least one of them is using assets that it should not be using. So maybe that was the problem. Always make sure if you're opening up tiled to edit a map that no other tab is open with another map to avoid this possibility. Yep. Acid Bottle is pretty much confirming he thinks that that's what happened. So from now on, it's just my habit. Whenever whenever I click on Edit Map, I immediately check to see if tiled opened up with the previous map I had been editing still there, because then that's how you're going to see. Like, the good news is I did find a feature in tiled where I thought what I did was right click on one of the tabs and I was able to replace the tile sheet with the correct one, and it fixed my map. It updated the references to use the proper tile sheet. So hopefully you can find that feature. I was just groping around hoping there was such a feature, and I found it. It was there, but Eric just looked for it and didn't see it. But he doesn't he might not have the latest version of tiled, so maybe
um,
it's a recent addition.
yeah, I haven't updated tiled in quite a long time, so I probably should do that soon. But anyway, so I'll just do a check in. So fix for 4 levels that had 2 copies of the actor sheet. Let's commit that and push. Okay. Well, now that I'm back here, so let's see if we can run it.
Oh, good. Mixel, that confirms I was not hallucinating. Mixel's Lab says he's used that replace thing too, but can't remember where it is either. Yeah, it was just one of those things. I'm like, oh, please let there be something that'll save me the time of having to reconstruct my level after deleting the kind of unwanted tile sheet. And there it was, but I have no. It was one of those probably 3 a.m. Hoping, you know what I mean, just groping around, right clicking on everything, and there it was. But I don't remember clearly exactly how I used the feature. I was just relieved that it was there and then went to sleep.
Okay, so that error isn't surprising because, yeah, it's a little too memory heavy for a stock A500. And getting it to run on stock A500 is a bit out of the scope of the what we're doing today. Um, but what I was going to do is I was going to set up sort of a fictional setup of 1 meg chip and 1 meg slow. Well, not fictional because I think some people actually do have Amigas that are basically that setup. Um,
So for now, it's like an arbitrary target to get it to
mm,
fit within.
yeah, and I think like well, I mean I've said it as A500, but I think quite a lot of A600 or A500 plus setups may have that configuration.
Right.
And there were a few commercial games that were 2 meg but didn't require AGA, like
Right.
Primal Rage and the like the expanded version of Mortal Kombat 2 with extra sound effects springs to mind. So neither of those actually required AGA. I think they were both advertised as AGA because of the 2 megabyte requirement.
Right.
I'm just going to call this test config. Okay, so if I select that test config, I won't go recompile. I just want it to run as fast as possible. And
By Otter Retro.
hi, Otto. Welcome to the chat. Okay, so far it's looking good.
Acid Bottle had asked, he said, I guess this issue would affect load times too. He was referring, I think, to the fact that maps were pointing to two different actor sheets. And
Sorry, I'm going to have to turn off the sound because
it's blasting in your ears.
yep,
We can't
that's
hear it on our end, or at least I can't hear it.
okay.
Oh, that's right. That's because I muted the stream. Sorry.
Yep, no, that's
Other
no
people.
worries. We don't really need the sound, so
Yeah.
I'm just going to update my configuration so that it's muted by default. Oops, that's the wrong
Right.
Wonderboy. Let's overwrite that. So far, it's looking good. Now, I was going to look at what we can do about. So there's a fair few static assets, like
Mm-hmm.
the X, and they can't really be made into blocks because they don't necessarily nicely line up. Also, things like the fruit, they can't really be made into blocks because they're not always lined to tiles, and they do things like they appear when you get close and then they disappear. But there are quite a few actors we could see if we can optimize a bit. And so far, Performance is okay. I haven't really noticed any major slowdowns, and there is a fair bit going on between all the enemies and the fruit.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
It's impressive. This is emulating an A500 as far as processor and
mm,
blitting speed, and
yep,
it seems to be running very smoothly,
yep.
even on a
Uh,
stream.
mm,
There we
um,
go. I think I'm seeing some slowdown now, right?
yeah, there was some
Yep.
slowdown around the fire, um, but yeah, overall this is perfectly playable. And of course this is a 50 hertz game as opposed to like a 25 hertz game.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, um, yep. Oh, I think I was about to run out of time anyway, but then I died from.
From the frog.
Hmm. Acid Bottle says it will lag on level 2
Yep.
on jump trampolines. So yeah, I figured that might be the case because I know there's some like really massive platforms that are moving platforms that are actors, like that as an example. So I think those other platforms are they're just tiles, but those
Yeah.
moving ones would be actors.
Right.
Um,
Well, so far the great news with that moving platform that I just saw is it was against pure blue background. So if it's not
mm,
yet set to the no mask blitting mode, that could help a lot.
yeah, that's something I had been thinking about. What
Yeah.
I'm not sure about is if maybe Acid Bottle could let us know is if the platform, if those moving platforms are always against sky, or if they're a yeah. So it's running quite. No, I thought it was running slow. It might have been just sort of like the intro sequence.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, here it seems to be chugging a bit, and then we get whoops. Okay. Yeah, sorry, Acid Bottle, if you're still there, we're just wondering if those moving clouds, if they're always against the sky backdrop, or if they're like inside of temples, and like with a non-solid background.
Welcome Indie Retro News, and good morning to you as well.
Hey, g'day, Neil. Welcome to the chat, and happy birthday for the other day. Yeah, so it's really chugging at that bit.
Yep. So far, it certainly seems like it's um, just the way probably the tile sets were in the actual arcade game. That so far all of the platforms, like even these clouds here and the moving ones, they seem to always be over the base background color.
Hmm.
So I would say if the goal really is to optimize it to run well on an A500, then even if it's on a case by case basis per level, if you have a level that's chugging and those moving platforms on that level are always against the sky, then
Oh,
it's probably worth. Yeah, there's one overlap there, but like,
yeah.
how hard would
So,
it be to move that cloud over a couple of pixels so it's not
hmm.
overlapping?
Yep. So that's one thing we could do. Um, though, I guess I wonder if, yeah, no, yeah, I suppose that would be a good example of something we can optimize on.
Yeah, like that
Um,
cloud in the background
mm,
is, I'm assuming, just a couple of tiles and has no effect
mm,
on gameplay.
yep.
In fact, I would say aesthetically, the game would look better in that spot if there were no
Mm,
if there were no overlap of the two clouds, the one you can land on and the like there, if there's a tiny bit of overlap, it's probably worth
mm,
just moving or
yep.
removing the tile clouds because it just makes
Cool.
it more confusing what you can land on and what you can't. Like the platform you're on right now,
Yep.
like the edge of it, it just becomes really hard to tell where you can land safely.
Mm. That's yeah. That is a good point. Um,
But still, this is a testament to the amazing optimizations you've done lately, Eric. These are very big, moving things
mm,
on screen, and for it to be performing this well now on a stock A500, speed-wise, is impressive. And so, I mean, obviously, Acid Bottle is the one that needs to decide. Like, I don't know if what he's done so far with these levels is like arcade perfect to the pixel, so he doesn't want to move the clouds and remove that overlap. But I
yeah,
would
that's
suggest that would improve the visual quality of the game and allow the optimization.
that is a good point. Acid Bottle, do let us know if you'd rather we didn't do things like move some of those background clouds so they don't overlap with the the moving clouds.
Yeah.
Um, I I do know that there are some Scorpion developers that are really trying for arcade perfect to the point where, like, even like, if it had on screen UI, UI over the level, instead of in a panel at the top and the bottom, they're trying to replicate that. Um,
Mhm.
that's, I think that's, well, personally, I think that's maybe a step too far, and because games back in the day they didn't do that, like Rainbow Islands, they made it like above the game. They made the lives and score above the game screen instead of where the arcade had it overlapped.
Right.
Um, oh, oh, now I think we've got a boss here, maybe, or boss soon.
Or maybe it was just a transition, that blackness was to transition to the drastically different tile set, appearance wise, for this ice cave.
Oh,
Or I
I
assume it's
see.
an
Yep,
ice cave.
yep. Okay, yeah, that does make sense. Oh,
It did give me the same
that
thing
egg
like
looked a
boss
bit
intro vibe.
Yeah, I shouldn't have gotten that egg because it looked a bit sick, but now I've got this Grim Reaper over me, so I don't know what that does actually. I suspect it might. Oops, it might do something like take away my health faster.
Right.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So Acid Bottle says death will suck your health.
He
Oops,
did say,
keep
Acid
messing
Bottle
that up.
did say, I cannot compromise on visuals well unless it makes a massive difference. It's just many levels to adjust and would affect the
Okay, yeah,
original gameplay. So what we're talking about would not affect gameplay at all. But
yep,
basically, you have to make that judgment
mm,
call what's more important to you. I think it would make performance
yep.
wise a big difference to make those
Uh,
big moving platforms use the more optimized blit mode. And it would not affect gameplay at all to just move the tiled clouds that don't affect gameplay at all. Right now, they do adversely affect gameplay because they're overlapping the moving cloud platforms and making it hard to tell where it is safe to land. So that's what I would suggest, but obviously it's you're the one that has to do the work of tweaking the tile placement of a couple of clouds, maybe across many levels, and you have to decide if that's worth it. But for the sake of this stream, I suggest maybe it's worth it for Eric to do it at least to one level so that we can actually better gauge how much of a
mm,
performance increase, and that will help you decide, Acid Bottle, if you want to invest that work in the other levels. But that this would not affect gameplay at all to change the background a little bit, like literally moving over an inconsequential cloud, so there's no overlap. Acid Bottle agrees.
okay. Oh well, so we'll I mean, I figured that the changes we make to the cloud are going to be a small,
Universal.
well, small enough that if Acid Bottle ultimately decides that this isn't really worth it,
Right.
that
Switching back would be
yeah,
fast.
switching back wouldn't shouldn't be an issue.
Yep.
But I think there's a lot of oh, it's kind of an interesting enemy. Um, I sus- oh, I suspect these rocks might actually be actors.
instead of blocks. Yeah,
because they don't look like they're sort of aligned to the tiles. If that makes sense. And so
right.
things that don't move and don't animate, we should be able to make them a bit faster by turning off the redraw. So basically, we tell it to blit twice, so we blit to both the front buffer and the back buffer, but then it doesn't need to draw again unless something overlaps it.
Right. Yeah, it's basically two tiers of optimization for anything that doesn't move. If it doesn't move, we could do what Eric was just talking about, so that it's not redrawing for every screen update because it's not moving. So unless something overlaps it, there's no need to kind of clean up or update its graphics. And then that other tier is, does it also not overlap anything but the background color? Because if it does, then you could go even further with the optimizations and turn off the basically the cleanup for the whole thing. But the only tricky thing with that is if it is a moving platform, you need to build a padding into the graphics of uh, some of the background color so that it basically cleans itself up with the border of color 0. So in other words, if it moves in a sine wave up and down movement or left and right at a speed, or not even sine wave, maybe if it's just moving up or just moving to the left or right, if it does so at 5 pixel increments, then you need to add a padding of 5 pixels, uh, on that, in the way that it moves, so that it will clean itself up. That'll make what I said will make more sense as you see Eric actually do it.
Right. Well, so I think I've seen enough of the game. Like since I got past the first boss, I've sort of got enough of an impression of the game to see what things could be slowing down, what things we could see if we can speed up. Now, Acid Bottle, I had another question. Uh, is there anything that I was thinking about making the player character into sprites, because the player character is reasonably big, and we could easily because it doesn't have so many colors, we could turn that into sprites, and that would across the board on every level give a little bit of a boost. But it does mean that nothing would be over top of the player. And I did notice there was one level where I think there was like a flower and you could walk behind the flower, but other than that, I didn't seem to see anything where it seemed like there should be something over top of Wonderboy, or something hiding Wonderboy, or obscuring rather.
So another question might be, in that case, how big was the flower, and might there be enough sprite left over after turning Wonder Boy into a sprite or series of sprites? Is there enough left to make that flower into a sprite so it can be on top of him anyway, or was it a big flower?
Oh,
Or
it was a tiny one. It was like a I'm not actually sure if it was an actor or a it could have been like a foreground. Let's have a look. So we've got flower. Oh, yeah, it was this one here, flower power, and
so it fits well within a 16 by 16 pixel tile.
this one could actually, well, unless that really needs to be in front of Wonderboy. It probably doesn't need to be. This is maybe something we could turn into a
Block
yeah, because as you say, it fits in a
tile very nicely. Yeah.
Let me just check. Is it an animation? So okay, so it's not actually animated. It is just a that's basically just a static object. It doesn't actually have any code. Doesn't have any collisions. It's just sort of in the background. If I do a find references, I can find what levels it's in.
Nice. I've never seen this feature in use yet, and that would really help me to work it into my workflow.
Yep. So, oh, hi, Amiga Kemi. Welcome to the chat. But yeah, so because we can actually see it here. So area for it 135 by 9. We can actually open up that fourth level. So this is where I would have seen it. Okay, Acid Bottle says the significance of the flower is it's a spawn reference to jumping wolves. Okay, I guess that makes sense, but it doesn't need to be something
An
that.
actor for that.
Yeah. Oh. Should. Okay, so. What did I say? It was like 149. Oh, yeah, so there it is. So that's something we could replace with a block.
The only
To.
difference, if they're blocked still, they can never be in front of the actor, especially if the actor is a sprite.
Absolutely. It could also be turned into like a tile, even.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, if it's put on the foreground, it could cover anything other than a sprite.
I didn't realize Scorpion Engine actually supported 2 layers of blidding for a tile map, one that would be behind actors and one that would be in front of actors.
So if you have a layer called foreground, it will blit tiles over any bob, but not over
Wow.
any sprite. Oh, except for like background parallax.
I assume there's a performance hit for that since it's got to do
Mm.
the whole first pass of the tile map and then the bobs and then do a second pass of the tile map on
Yeah.
top.
So it's optimized in this way. It only draws it only draws the foreground layer if there's something behind it.
Oh, nice.
If there's nothing behind it, then it doesn't bother drawing the foreground, because like the foreground
It's not changed.
part
Yeah.
is baked into the background tile, so it draws the background tile, and then it
Right.
draws the foreground over top only if there's actually an actor that needs to be obscured by it.
Very nice.
Um, so yeah, Acid Bottle says that basically so that it was um, the reason why it Tom runs behind it is because that's what happened in the arcade.
Right.
But to squeeze our performance, we could change it, but I don't think that's a high priority. It's not like everywhere.
Right.
There's probably a few other things we can look at first.
And because it's such a small image, and because probably typically the flowers go behind the player, it might even be worth making the one edge case flower that occasionally goes, make that an actor. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But make all the other ones just built into the tile set.
Now, I'm gonna copy that into Notepad.
Or if we are going to make Wonder Boy a sprite, then, like I said, maybe make that flower a sprite if there's enough sprites um,
Mm.
left over. But I didn't look carefully how big
Yeah. Um,
Wonder Boy is.
so Wonder Boy is 16 pixels most of the time, so that's only like one
Oh wow,
tier. Uh,
yeah,
but when his foot is out, when he's running, then it's closer to 32 pixels. But that still leaves 2 sprite channels free that we could use
for the flowers.
something.
Well, that's
Yeah.
perfect then.
I had been thinking about using a sprite channel some sprite channels for the boss, which is close to 48 pixels wide, but I didn't seem to see any big performance hits fighting the boss. And if we change Tom to being a sprite, that means that when he fights the boss, he's not going to be
It's still an
as.
improvement
Yeah.
because the
Um,
player is always there. So if the player is optimized, then the game is optimized across the board, or at least in that regard, it's got a boost across the board.
um, well, I'll catch you later, Acid Bottle, and yeah, good luck. I'm sorry to hear about situation with your daughter. Um, Well, one thing I was aware of is there were um, like this you see here it says reduce by 1 pixel to 16 to improve blip performance. That's because these are 17 pixels wide.
Yep.
And I looked at those before, and I think there were some animations where it was. Let's have a look. So I think these ones here were okay. Like this one here was trimmed to fit in 16, but there
Nice.
was an idle one that needs to be fixed. I just need to remember what it is. Tom Idle. So if we look for Tom Idle, you see that one has the extra pixel on the here.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
That seems completely arbitrary.
yep. So I think that was probably something that came from the arcade rip,
Yep.
and I'm guessing they just didn't care. Well, they had no reason to care about 16 pixel alignments because of whatever Sega hardware they were using, but
Right.
because we want to try and squeeze out
Right.
a little bit of performance.
Or even if it would have been an optimization for that hardware, if it was unnecessary because the
Mm,
game ran fine, they wouldn't have bothered. But this is especially weird to me because it almost looks like an accident where the original pixel artist just accidentally like dragged and caused the pixels to smear on the hair.
mm,
Or also the usually you would want the hair to be longer while the player is running to emphasize the movement, whereas this is the
mm,
opposite. This is when the character is idle, so there should not be that the extra width to the hair. And oh, I realized I never said hi, Amiga Cami. Welcome. But yeah, see that
oh,
this is the a perfect example of a potential change from the arcade that no one would ever notice, and it would make a substantial performance increase. So why not do it?
mm. Okay, so I think it was just these two that were like that. I think it's showing twice in the build log because there's two different animations that use it.
Right, right.
Let me just check. I think most of these, there are a few other ones that are 17 pixels, but um, so like this umbrella was an example, but I don't like some of these. It's
There
um,
might be a visual hit to remove a pixel.
yeah. So like that one, we could remove that, but then I guess we'd want to fill that in, and it could become a bit of a well, yeah,
Yeah,
you lose a bit of visual fidelity, but I think that's um, yeah, there's probably nothing else that we can really cut that has um,
like an easy
yeah,
fix down to 16 pixels. Yeah.
okay,
That umbrella, I mean, a pixel artist like myself could definitely make it, to the human eye at a glance. Even people that played the arcade game all the time would not notice the difference.
mm,
But it is a more substantial change that would need to be made. So it's only worth bothering once all the other easier optimizations are done, and then Acid Bottle would need to decide if he's willing to have a more drastic visual change, even though, like I said, to the average human eye, it wouldn't be a noticeable difference in that case.
um, sorry, I'm just trying to
No problem.
is that says 11 down there. I'm just trying to work out what. Huh. Oh, okay. No, it will be in this CP1. Okay, so that must stand for checkpoint 1. I was just trying to work out what these were, and then that's the solid ground. 129. So I did notice it seemed to slow down when there was a lot of fruit on screen, and that kind of makes sense because they are actors rather than blocks, and they are actors because they don't line up with 16 pixel alignments, and they they do things like they appear and they disappear. But this one might be an interesting one to see if we can do some optimization on. So because it shows up on screen, but then it doesn't move.
Right.
So if we have a look at fruit. So we've got fruit spawn and junk food handler. Let's have a look at those.
Junk food handler. That
Hmm.
should be a name for a band.
Um, Oh, okay. So we've got this thing that makes the fruit invisible until the player's close. That makes sense. We could probably change that to, instead of playing animation blank, we can change it to being, turn off the renderer. I'm not sure why that's needed in the. Oh, is that junk food handler? Which one is that? Junk food handler Apple. Junk food. Oh, okay. So there must be the junk food. There must be something that changes them to junk food, like some sort of power up that changes all these apples to junk food. So if we've got junk food burger, is it an actor? It must be an actor. Junk food burger. Yep. Okay, so that makes sense. And that's actually a little bit. You see, that's actually a little bit longer, wider than the tile, so that couldn't be.
Yeah, that's another case where it could easily be tweaked to fit in 16 pixels
Yep.
without the average person noticing.
Mm.
But that's because it is a change from the arcade pixels, then Acid Bottle would need to make that decision. And after we do the other optimizations.
So let's just have a look at that. That was. Oh, okay. So this one was actually fruit lower. So I was looking at the wrong one anyway. Fruit lower. Um, Now I am a little bit confused about. So this fruit spawn. That says play the play anim blank on actor. Okay, so I think I might know how it works. So it's supposed to be invisible until it gets close. Yeah, okay, so that's how it works. So this animation has a fruit spawn event. So it runs on a loop it
Mm-hmm.
gets until it's close enough. But at the same time, it's running this junk food handler,
Right.
which
So for
changes it
everyone on
to.
screen, it's doing some code every frame.
Hmm.
I don't know
Yeah.
if there's a way to optimize that aspect of it, but
Well, I think so. So I'm assuming the reason why this is running every frame is so that whatever triggers the junk food change does it automatically to all the fruit,
right.
or does it instantly to all the fruit? But that's something that we could fix through, the for each. I'm just not
Right.
sure what is meant to run the uh sorry.
Like what triggers it?
Yeah. So I'm gonna rewrite some of this. Um, so that's junk food handler apple. And yeah, because that does it every frame, that's going to be at least a slight performance hit. And when you've got 4 pieces of fruit on screen, it's all going to add up.
Right.
Um,
Because you've got that code, and then you've got the collision detection, I'm assuming, running since all four are on screen,
mm,
and you've got their blidding. So I may have missed it. Did you already do that tweak where you set it to not update every frame blidding wise?
no,
Okay.
I haven't yet. I think I'll do that. So I'm gonna remove that for now. Junk food handler Apple. Um, I think it would make sense to, like, if we had the start of fruit spawn being the the check, should this be a is this junk food or not? Actually, and oh yeah, and junk food has that same fruit spawn check as well. But anyway, so I'm going to change this to being a from an F to a while. Um, and just in that while loop, all I'm going to do is I'm going to have a yield for 1 frame. I'm going to set the render mode to off.
So now instead of playing an invisible animation and switching over, it's just not drawing at all.
Yep. So that should save a few cycles with needing to rerun the animation logic basically every frame.
Mm-hmm.
So then when we get to here, we set the render mode to uh, default. I think that might be a good place to give it a quick test just to make sure the fruit is still working. We will need to do something to fix the the junk food spawning, but
Right.
um,
So let's see if the fruit just appears like it's
yeah.
supposed to
Mm.
and starts out invisible like it's supposed to.
I'll also do some checks here. So one thing we can do is we can switch this to fetch mode 1, which means that on AGA machines you get quite a decent performance boost. It's not on by default because it adds some limitations to where you can position screens and things, but I think because everything's a multiple of 32 pixels, then we can set that to fetch mode 1, and it doesn't do anything for A500, but it does mean that if you're on an A1200, you're even less likely to run into
Frame drops.
performance, frame drops. Um,
Interesting. I
I'm
was
not
just
actually.
noticing if we do turn the player into sprites, it looks like there would probably need to be quite a bit of palette rearranging.
Yep. So that shouldn't be too much of a hassle. We probably should just have a look at some of the animations and then work out which.
Colors
Um,
need to, yeah.
yep.
But the other question is, no sprites otherwise are used in this game?
No, I think I looked through it. In fact, I can
Okay.
look through it again, but I'm pretty sure there are absolutely zero use of hardware sprites anywhere
Well,
in the
that's
game.
great. Yep.
Um, yep. And so we could turn those Tom ones to sprites, and then anything that. Oh, actually, no. It looks like these axes are sprites.
Ah, okay.
Which is all right because I think there's only really a couple of X's that.
On
Uh,
screen at a time.
yep, and
It
I
looks
think.
like they should be 16 by 16. I
Mm,
hope so.
yep.
At a glance, they looked that way.
Um,
The
I
frames of the
I
X.
get the feeling that the colors might not be right. For like I vague. I could be wrong about this, but I thought I saw the X's changing colors in certain contexts, which would make
Right.
sense if there were only sprites. and they had to go back to Bob's, but the sprite version had the wrong colors because of the order of the palette.
Right.
Oh man, this is such an ambitious project. So many bosses, so many levels.
Yep.
And yeah, there wasn't a version of this game on Amiga back in the day. There was sort of a like a rip-off, but that is quite notorious for not being very good
Not being great.
quality. So
Yeah.
um, yeah. Oh, I won't. Yeah, I don't think I will go through all the sprites. We did see that some of them were sprites. Those axes were sprites.
Right.
We probably want to make a list of what colors are used for the axe and for Tom, so
Right.
we can make sure those are in the
Right. But I
top
guess for
16.
now, we should probably stay focused on one optimization at a time, do the
Mm.
low-hanging fruit, literally and
That's
figuratively.
yep.
Get the fruit finished in their optimization, and then
Mm.
the player as a sprite is
Yep.
definitely the more time-consuming and ambitious one to do later.
Mm.
But it might be the biggest improvement across the board.
Completely.
Amiga Kemi mentioned that was called Thunder Boy, which
Mm.
I guess if it ran fast, it would have been called Lightning Boy. It just had loud
Yeah.
music, so they called it Thunder Boy, but it ran
Yep.
poorly.
It might have been one of. Well, I've never actually played it. I figure it might have been one of those games where they did the Atari ST port first, and then they had a shoestring budget to finish the Amiga version, so they didn't use hardware sprites or any sort of
Yeah.
Amiga.
You just
Um,
you just described like 80% of
mm,
all of the official ports, even of high-end AAA arcade games for Amiga.
mm,
The ST caused such a low quality standard, unfortunately, for Amiga ports.
mm. Um. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I.
Well, it wasn't
Oh,
the ST's fault, obviously.
no, no.
Those were business decisions.
And there were some odd situations where like even some really high quality ports, like Midnight Resistance, I think is maybe the
Hmm.
main one, where the palette was only half as bright as it should have been, and that's
Oh yeah,
because there's an extra bit in the color depth on Amiga over Atari ST, but that was sort of ignored, and I guess they just thought, oh well, people can just turn up their
bright
monitor
in their monitor.
brightness. Yeah.
That's terrible. Oh
Yep.
my,
Okay.
insane.
Um.
So they are appearing as they should, as far as I can see.
Yep. Okay. So the fruit seems to be okay. Um. What I'm going to try next is that extra layer of optimization where we. Um.
The render mode.
Yep. So I'm going to
The
wait for.
Yeah.
Going to go for 2 frames. And I'm just going to say 2 frames to. Um. Sorry. 2 frames to. Um. Uh,
Is this to like buffer
yeah. Yep.
safely
Sorry.
the screen
I,
updating so that when you switch render modes, it definitely won't cause a problem?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. I couldn't think of the word.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wait for 2 frames. Then we're gonna turn the render mode off again. But on top of that, we're also gonna change the render clearing to disabled. So we're not only not rendering, but we're not clearing. So we're not going to clear the thing that we'd already drawn.
Right.
Um, Now that might cause an issue if something else clears the area, like something
Right.
overlaps the apple. But with Tom being something that eats the apple anyway, it shouldn't be an issue because it should just pick up the apple and
And if
destroy it.
Tom becomes a sprite, then that doesn't. There's no need to clean up tiles or blitted things if a sprite goes over it because it's completely different display hardware,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
Like if a sprite overlaps a bob, then the bob doesn't
Hmm.
need to get cleaned up or fixed or redrawn because the sprite has
Yeah.
no effect on the bob.
So yeah, that is the other thing is if we change the Tom animations to being sprites,
Yeah.
then it uh sorry, if we change the Tom animations to being sprites, it's going to be even less likely that we're going to have issues where something disappears because
Right.
it's half
Yeah, because the render mode has been changed
mm,
to one that's not constantly updating to fix itself.
mm,
Yeah, especially if the player and the axes are sprites, then there's not a lot else going on that would likely overlap the fruits.
mm. Oh, okay, so that didn't quite work. So we saw them. So they
Oh,
came on and then they flashed. So I might have messed up
yeah, I
something with
think
the
the
logic.
render mode off thing is overriding the fact that you're telling it not
Oh,
to.
yeah.
Like, I think you need the yield in between the two.
Table clearing.
Like, you have
Yeah,
disable
actually, yeah, no,
clearing
you
and
are you
set
are right
actors render
because we want
mode.
to draw it on both frames, but we don't want to
Exactly.
clear what we just drawn on both frames. So, yep, you're absolutely right. That could be it. And I suppose the other thing is if we do have an issue where it gets a bit messed up, we could still keep the drawing on. We just disable the clear mode because it's just not moving and nothing is going to be behind it.
Yeah,
We still get at least some boost by just
yeah,
telling it not to redraw those tiles or not
absolutely. Yeah.
redraw the tiles underneath it.
Yeah. Otter Retro said, I was about to say, wait, there's a real reason to resent the ST? Yeah, it depends on how you look at it, right? Its very existence meant that it became a very, you could say cynical, but a bottom dollar decision by the studios that were actually paying the low amounts of money to very beginner programmers to make ports. They could just say, okay, the Atari ST and the Amiga have the same main processor. So we're just going to make that the lowest common denominator, and you're just going to do all the graphics and all the code once and just compile it for ST or compile it for Amiga. So we're paying for way less work and hitting both markets. So the real question is who's at fault? There's the business people making a shrewd business decision, but at the same time, they could not have gotten away with that if the Amiga community didn't buy poorly made ports. But then on the other side, you could say, especially now in hindsight, you could say, yes, but if they didn't buy the poorly made ports, then maybe there would have just been no Amiga support. But I don't think that's likely considering how big of a market Amiga was in its heyday in the UK and Europe. And another argument to be made is maybe if the okay, there's an interesting situation
Hmm.
to have to deal with. We didn't
Okay.
consider
So,
partially overlapping, but if
hmm.
the player's a sprite, that would not be an issue.
um, well, actually, it'd kind of be more of an issue because we wouldn't even get rid of the bottom half of the banana.
Oh, right, right.
Um,
It,
but
it seems like
so
before you
that's
destroy it, you need to switch it back to full on render mode.
yep. And wait, let's have a look at this anim. I think okay, so that's I wonder what we can do. Let's have a look at this. I think pretty much any of these fruit. Actually, I'm
Yeah,
going
this is
to
going to be an
remove the junk food
on-player
handler from
collide.
all of these. I think we can put. Actually, I know what I'm going to. I'm going to put junk food handler at the start of the fruit spawn, so that at least checks when it's spawned if it needs to be junk food or not. If there's something that at real time
Changes whether or not. Yeah.
except I think we need to do it by I should have made a note which ones I
Become
guess
junk food.
hidden fries. So what does that? That's junk food handler. Yeah, okay, so that one just becomes fries anyway, it seems. Well, that's okay. I mean, I think we can work it out or come back to it. But so
Good
those
old
are all the fruit, and then we've got
good old McDonald's fries. It reminds me of an old joke I had whenever I was at a friend's house or at a party and they were M&Ms. I would say, "Oh, did you ever hear about the recall of M&Ms? They had to recall a whole batch of M&Ms because of a defect. Half of the M&Ms in the bag had W's on them instead of M's." But Tish.
okay.
It's a branding nightmare, like, oh, our whole thing is the M's and half of these in every bag are W's. It's
Yeah.
terrible for brand recognition.
Anyway, okay, so that sets it to render mode off. What should I'm always wondering if we just don't bother with. Actually, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just gonna disable clearing, and I'm going to disable that, so it just does the Oh, okay. So these junk food handlers are named after the type of thing that they are. So we can do a check at the start here. But anyway, so I'm just going to give that another. I'm just going to run that again. So at least having it so that it doesn't clear up after itself. Oh, actually, is that? Wait, is. No, that could still be a problem with just grabbing half of the banana. I'll just see what it's like.
Well, I thought what you were going to do to fix the half a banana issue was in the code that
Make
checks
it
on collision with player, switch back its rendering mode to
full 2
normal to
frames.
get rid of it, and then you're done.
Yeah, I probably should do that. Well, I'll see what happens now, just in general what it's like.
Mhm.
Oh. Huh. Okay, I wonder. Oh, probably because it changes into that other one. That
Right, with the 50, the
yeah.
points.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
because
on
if it changes into something like that, then maybe we can just
when you change it, you change the render mode,
hmm,
which I assume is triggered by the on collide with player.
yep. So well, yeah, let's have a look at this. What it actually does. So we've got this fruit and we've got apple hit. Yeah. Okay. So we change the actor. So that um that makes sense. If I just go base and then um uh sorry, not base. I want to go actor and I want to change the render mode to
Normal or default.
default. Default, but also we want to change the clearing, enable clearing on actors. Um,
Yep.
and then what? Let's have a look at this score 50. I presume it plays in animation. Oh, okay, and it destroys after 40 frames. So that's more than enough time to.
Clean itself up.
Yep. What I'm hoping, and this may not
It's
work as expected, is it might not fully overlap the
yes,
tiles.
if the frame 50 is smaller than the fruit itself, then you could still have an artifact,
Yep.
at least for a frame or two, until it destroys the entire object,
Mm.
or even then maybe.
Um. Yeah, I mean that's the thing is we could add a yield statement into that Apple get that basically
Yep,
says keep it as an Apple, uh, or
for a frame or two.
keep that animation for a frame or two,
Hmm.
and then we change it. We'll need to be careful to make sure that we don't do anything like because it's still an Apple, it's still triggering,
Right, right, right.
and so it gives us like infinite energy. For what it's worth, I don't hate the Atari ST. I think it has some really cool features.
Yeah.
The like I haven't really used one myself that much, but the MIDI input on it was really cool. I mean, it brought something to the table, which is really that's uh, even if it was Amiga's rival, it still had its own
Yeah.
um,
It was definitely a different market, and it would have been an even drastically more different market if the all of the businesses that were marketing the Amiga and making games for Amiga did a better job actually putting good use to the Amiga's hardware, which I'm very opinionated about. I just the overall quality of the Amiga's game library really drives me nuts compared to what it could have been.
mm,
Um, Pretty much across the board, even the games that looked great, like Shadow of the Beast, and sounded fantastic, left much to be desired gameplay wise, but then especially even most Amiga games made by the big studios that should have, in my opinion, had higher standards for what was an acceptable Amiga port, were far inferior to what the Amiga was capable of.
mm.
But obviously, budget has to be considered, and it's if a business goes out of business because of high standards, that doesn't help anyone.
Yeah.
But there could have been a happy medium, and like I said, it would have helped. I think if obviously, if they tried a really cheap ST port and didn't sell any copies, and the consumer base of Amiga fans said, "Hey, we see what you're doing. You're completely neglecting the abilities of the Amiga to make a cheap, more profitable port. So when you do that, we're not going to buy your games." Then that could have fixed things. especially if Commodore also were more aggressive with sharing technology and tools or creating the technology and tools in the
Mm.
first place. Like that's something that the game companies that made consoles tended to make sure that the developers were up to a certain standard and that they knew how to use the hardware. You know what I mean? To exploit the specific features of the hardware. But that wasn't really a thing back then on the computer side of things, which is a shame. But like, imagine how different it could have been if, you know, something that really, basically, if Commodore themselves was always keeping an eye on innovations in how to really bang the Amiga hardware and made sure that anyone that was publishing on the Amiga had access to code examples and demos for like, this is how you make a game look good and sound good on Amiga and and then there's the ridiculousness of them never or for the longest time not having any official more than one button joystick was absolutely
Yeah.
ridiculous.
um. Yeah, I think there were a lot of things that went wrong and made it difficult for
Yeah.
developers. I know piracy was a massive problem
Hmm.
for developers, and I was talking to Kevin Toms, who he was the guy that invented Football Manager as a genre, as well as the
Hmm.
first game in that genre. And they did the sort of 16-bit version for ST and Amiga, and they found that the sales for the ST version were massively higher than the Amiga version, even though the
Hmm.
market share for the two platforms at the time was basically the same.
Right.
And they looked into it, and yeah, there was this apparently there was
Piracy.
this massive counterfeiting operation that was putting out Amiga games that looked like the real thing.
Yeah.
Um, right, I'm going to try putting that back to how it was with the render mode. I'm going to change that to, yeah, so disable clearing, wait for 2 frames, render mode off. I might change my mind about that depending on if it creates any visual glitches.
Right.
Um, but
And then
um,
on Collide, did you switch the render mode back yet to normal?
um,
You may have already done that.
yeah,
Like
yep, I
when
did.
he grabs the oh sweet, okay.
I did it on Apple Hit. Let me just check if I didn't seem to check if. Okay, so most of those use Apple Hit, except for there's a peer hit and a Toma hit. Furry bonus. I don't know what that's about. Um, but um, I can copy that code at the top. Yeah. Okay. So some of those give more points. That's why it's a different.
Right.
Um,
Of course, you could. I'm assuming he's not using a variable, all the variables in the fruits, so you could completely make it use one code block instead of multiple, and just have the points that the fruit gives you as the variable in the fruit in that
hmm.
given fruit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So you could um, like
Have one code block handle all
yeah,
of them.
and then just have it in here. Um, but yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
there's always opportunities to um, tidy things up here and there.
Yep.
I'm going to create a new code block, and I'm going to call this. Just going to call this disable clearing, and I'm going to put this on the rocks as they spawn. So I'm just going to go actor. So for anything that basically
Never
never
moves.
moves,
Yeah.
so um, I'll disable, and there were a lot of these. Oh, no, those are platforms. rocked. Okay, so because those never. Um, I think things can overlap with them or overlap with their tiles. So
Right.
disabling the drawer after a couple frames may not be such a good idea, but at least disabling it so that they draw every frame, but they never clear.
To show the background through,
Mm,
because there's no point. If they don't move, then the background is never going to be revealed.
yep.
Unless they update an animation frame that reveals different pixels or move, then you don't need to have clearing turned on.
Mm. I'll
I
just sort of.
actually need to go away from my computer for a minute, but
Yep.
I'm just going to mute my mic and I'll be right back.
Okay, no worries. Just for viewers to explain what I'm doing is I'm changing the movement types. Some of these things that never move, like the food that you can pick up, I'm changing that to none because none of it should ever move. It's curious that there's hidden fries and a junk food fries. Anyway,
I am back.
welcome back.
Yep.
One minor optimization I was doing is I was changing the movement type for some of these
To none?
to none,
Yeah.
and that's so it's slightly faster because if it's set to none, it doesn't even check to see if
Yeah.
there's speed. Whereas even like say if you've got something like that, and say if that was set to zeros, then it would still be checking to see if something else had set the speed to. Um,
Right.
but that's just a simple, quick optimization.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, Alex, the programmer of Metro Siege, really made me aware of how critical that was for optimizing on systems like Amiga. Anytime you have to do any kind of check, uh, if it can be
mm,
avoided, is great. So this is one of those circumstances where basically it might not necessarily be a check, but when movement is set to none, it's not even going through any logic that it doesn't need to.
mm. Right. So. Yeah. So. Yeah. It all adds up. All these tiny little things are.
Yeah,
Yeah. Especially if you've got 5 fruit on screen and you're running at 50 frames a second. You've got all these checks. Do I need to move up? Do I need to move down? Do I need to move left? Do I need to move right? If you can
yeah,
replace all of those with just don't even check. Just move to the next thing and go on. So we've got a couple of questions from chat. First one is Amiga Cami says, "How come some of these patterns aren't centered around the dither pattern?" So what the dither pattern is that's where the um, that's basically the tile. So if we have a look in the editor, the dither pattern lines up with the where the tile that we've placed. For some of these, like the fruit lower, to be arcade perfect, Acid Bottle moved the fruit down because it's not perfectly on the tile. It's for that particular fruit, it's down, sort of half a tile.
Right. It's compensating for the fact that the way, at least that Scorpion Engine is using tiled, you can't place anything on a pixel by pixel, like pixel perfect basis. You do it based on the tile grid.
Yeah.
So that shows you the tile it's going to place it, and this allows you to offset it so that you can match the pixel perfect coordinate, in this case from the original game.
I'm going to tell you a bit of a secret, that feature that I've planned, but I haven't quite done, because for my own games, I'm gonna need to be able to place at an exact location without doing this for every single actor, doing
Mhm.
an offset like that. Um, I found that if you're on an object layer, there's this insert tile, and with this, you could basically place it anywhere. And you do that for any of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add official support for that tile function so that you'll be able to place actors at any pixel rather than just at
Right.
multiples of 16 plus the offset. Um, anyway,
And yes, Prid said it is me, Mike.
sorry, yeah, that was the second question that I was
Yes.
going to get around to. But anyway, so yeah, I've done a few optimizations here and there. I've set these to none, and I've set the rocks to. So for rocked, I've set it to disable clearing. Oh, that one I missed. This one's it um should never render them. Oh, sorry, it should no, sorry, it will render them every frame, but it won't clear them up. So because rocks are the solid, they don't get destroyed or anything. They will permanently be on the um, it's basically baking them to the background. Okay, I'll just see what it's like right now. I might need to trip on those rocks, but yep. So the doesn't seem to be any issues with the rocks not clearing.
Awesome.
I was wondering if we could do something similar with the fire.
Right. The fruit looks perfect too, as far as I can see.
Hmm.
Well, the fire is animated, right? So you can't turn off the clearing if parts, different
Yeah, so
frames of the
that's
fire
yeah. So
reveal different pixels.
I might not be able to do anything with that. Yeah, I guess that might be just a bridge too far.
I mean, definitely the graphics could be changed, so that would be a non-issue. But again, that's
Mm,
moving away from what might be a desired pixel perfect to the arcade goal that Acid Bottle is after.
mm,
So those are the kind of optimizations you don't bother making um, until you've exhausted all the other ones that don't change the game away from the arcade version.
mm.
But can you notice a performance increase yet regarding screens where there are multiple fruits?
I mean, I get. I guess this is subjective, but it did feel faster.
Yeah, it
Though,
definitely looked
though,
like I didn't
yeah.
notice any slowdown.
Though having said that, as Acid Bottle said, level 2 is where we'd
Yeah,
expect more slowdowns. I think that could largely be because of things
the
like
platforms, exactly,
the
which we've not
platforms.
gotten to yet.
Hmm.
I think that should be next because that should be the next really big performance increase that shouldn't be too hard to fix.
Hmm.
And then if you have time and energy, then making the player a sprite.
Oh, um. Oh, I thought I saw a glitch on side of it.
On the
Might have.
side of the cloud moving platform, I did
Yeah.
just see that too.
There
And we've not changed that at all yet, right?
hmm. I don't know what caused that. I wonder if it's just because of it being fairly big and then.
Yeah, the width of it.
Hmm. Um.
Ironically, the optimization might fix
Oh,
that glitch.
I'm gonna look at I think some of those static clouds might be actors.
Oh, wow. Yeah, those
Now,
should really be baked into the tile set.
hmm. Uh,
And this would move away from the arcade perfect matchiness, but from a visual game design standpoint, I definitely would have used, if such a color exists, I would have used a light blue instead of pure white for those background clouds so they can't be mistaken ever for something you interact with. Because they're mostly the same white as the actual platforms you can land on, and
hmm.
therefore their contrast is almost as high. If they were a pale blue, it would push them into the background more, make them obviously just part of the aesthetic and kind of setting the scene. Um, so it would look better and not affect gameplay. But again, that's probably not the kind of decision definitely not that we should make. And uh, Acid Bottle probably would not want to make that kind of decision because it seems like he wants as close to pixel perfect with the arcade as possible.
Sorry, I just uh there was some spam.
Yeah,
I
I
think
saw
I've
that.
I think I've blocked it. I'm not sure if it's well. I've reported it. I'm not sure if I
Blocked it.
well, yeah, okay, I did report. I'll go block. Um, yeah. So yes, these Twitch bots, like I've reported and banned a few of them. They always seem to be like not brand new accounts, but accounts from like that one was 2020.
Wow.
So it's like spammers set up these accounts 2 years ahead
Yeah,
of
it's
time and then
amazing.
just sit on them. So presumably because this such old accounts, it seems like they must be
Real people. Yeah.
yeah. Now I actually thought that some of those static clouds might have been actors, but it doesn't appear to be the case.
Yeah.
It just seemed like it had slowed down a fair bit.
Right.
What I'm
Now,
gonna
I have
do?
a question regarding optimization that
Oh,
I. Yep. Go ahead.
okay. So we've got a foreground layer. That could be partly why.
Hmm.
Uh,
Slowing down. This level slows down more.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
was yeah, because some of those actors are jumping. Yeah, I think that that's sort of a necessary thing. Is those actors are meant to jump out of the water, but it means that when they go behind them, it's more
Yeah.
rendering.
So that is a potential issue with the player being um, sprites. Is presumably when he falls into the water, he needs to go
Mm,
behind the water. Now, a clever programmer coding this game from scratch could make it so that the sprite doesn't draw that low on the screen for this level. You know, like it literally clips,
yeah,
if that
yeah,
makes
or
sense. But
changes
that's a
into a bob
super
once it
specific. Yeah,
floats.
well, yeah, you could do that in Scorpion. Yeah.
Mm. Um,
Um, let's see. But my question was regarding optimization. I don't get why Acid Bottle seems to be using blocks for every platform instead of just setting the tile to be a solid in the map editor.
um,
And like I understand that's necessary for slopes, but most of these levels and like this level in its entirety has no slopes.
yeah, I think what it might be is that
I see it
to get
now.
yeah, so that cloud is slightly below the tile alignment.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's got a flat slope that's also slightly below the tile alignment. So yeah, I guess that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
thought it was it's quite a clever way of getting around the arcade issue of the cloud sort of being slightly random
look at the ground
positions.
there. It looks like the graphics of the ground are perfectly aligned so
Hmm.
that you could just make all of that, get rid of all those blocks, and just set those tiles to be solid.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like under the octopus squid things.
Yeah. I think maybe just for consistency, he's used the slope across the board. There can be some issues where, if you're going from a slope to a solid tile, it doesn't quite gel, and then you can slip through the gaps. But I wouldn't have thought this would be necessary on these islands.
Yeah.
Having said that, it could be just sort of a well, yeah. The other thing is, I mean, it's fairly easy to lay down these solid tiles. It might be quite tricky for every level to go through the tile set and then manually flag which ones are solid.
Well, this
Oh,
is one of those
yeah,
things, right? It's a trade-off between work and optimization. Like,
yeah.
how much of a performance hit is this causing for the sake
Um,
of convenience?
hmm,
And I
yeah.
can't
I mean,
imagine
not.
it's a lot of tiles that need to be
Hmm.
solid.
I mean, in a game, yeah. I mean, in a game that has slopes anyway, I don't think there's too much of a performance hit to land on a solid tile versus a tile that's slope because it's got to check if it's above a
You
slope
mean a block?
anyway. Um, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, a solid block or a solid tile.
Yeah, but the point is, for this level in particular, there are no slopes, period.
Hmm.
And then the other
Um.
issue with the clouds being slightly differently aligned, that's a question of, okay, that might not be arcade perfect, but would it affect the gameplay at all or be noticeable to the vast majority of people? But again, these are the kinds of decisions that we should not make
Hmm.
since we're
Um.
not the ones making this
Yeah.
game.
Um. I'm almost wondering if. Actually, no. That it wouldn't really be a good idea. I mean, if uh, if Acid Bottle was here, I would ask him if it was really important that Wonderboy disappears behind the water. If it
Right.
wasn't, but it was important that the squids disappear behind the water, we could maybe actually use sprites, just the line a
Little water
sprite of that
sprites.
that just cover up the actors that the squids that jump out.
Right.
Um, but
Or they
yeah,
wouldn't necessarily have to be sprites, right? They could be actors.
mm, yeah. Um, Well, we've got. I was only really planning to stream for another 20 minutes. So, do you think
Okay.
as a final check we could try making Tom a sprite.
Sure, yeah.
We'll need to
There's that or the platforms, right?
Mm,
The making the platforms not clear
yeah.
because they're
I,
usually
mm,
whichever one you want to do. I'm
I'm
fine with that.
yeah. I'm a little worried about the clouds because they move in different directions. It looks like some of them are static until we jump on them, or um, things like that.
Right.
So because there's a fair variety of how these clouds work, I guess on top of some of these clouds overlap the background clouds. On top of maybe there's like a later level where the clouds overlap, something that's not a solid background. Um,
Right.
hmm,
Well, I mean, it seemed like Acid Bottle was here when we discussed it, and he seemed to agree that it wouldn't be a big deal to move the background clouds out of the way in those edge cases. But that's up to you, definitely, if you want to. Like, the player is an optimization across the
hmm,
board for the whole game. So if
yeah,
you want to
that's
do that, by all means.
yep. Um, so we'll go back to the animations, and we'll have to go through. So it looks like there's about. I'm going to switch them to only sprite. Sorry, auto sprite. Um, the difference between auto sprite and only sprite is auto sprite still creates a bob to fall back on if there just aren't enough sprite channels.
Right.
And potentially we could have a case where because the X's are sprites, we
Hmm.
might have too many. We might just have too many
Sprites on a
sprites
scan
all at
line.
once. The
Excuse me.
reason why you would use only sprite is if you've got something particularly big and then it's a waste of memory to generate a bob because you know for sure that it'll never be a bob.
Right.
Um,
Well, the other issue too is like in Scorpion Boy, it's a 16 color game. So if you want to use the additional 16 color indices, the way to do that is to design something specifically to always be made with sprites, and it's using colors that don't even exist in the first 16 colors.
hmm,
So that's the case in Scorpion Boy. You carefully design things to only be sprites, and you make sure in your game design that there's never too many of them
hmm.
on screen.
Just gonna let's apply that, and then how many colors? Oh, okay. So there are 10 colors in the sprite, so we need to make sure that those 10 colors are in the top. Um,
You mean in the lower 16, right?
so the upper, uh, making sure that they're all in the sprite area.
Which is the second set of 16, not the
Yes.
first set.
Yep. So the bottom, as
Yes.
in the bottom here, rather than um.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yep.
Starting with color 16, which is
Yep.
clear. So
Okay. So if I do a decrease color depth to go to 256.
be right back. I have to check my phone.
Yep. All right.
I'm back.
Welcome back. I'll just quickly run through that and just make a note of these colors. So that, call that brown one. That will be, I guess, red one. Call that one brown 2. Sorry, this shouldn't take too much longer, but Paint Shop Pro is a bit strange for free. Yeah, just a bit painful for things like this.
Yeah.
Maybe yellow.
The way I work, because I think I'm an artist, I would have just eyeballed it, arranged the palette, and ran it and see if I missed any, and then you know what I mean.
Mm.
Like it's the hacky way, but may have been quicker. Then again, I'm not positive. I don't think there's a simple way, although this would be a cool feature, to literally just click and drag the palette around to like swap them around.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of cut and paste is the
Yeah, yeah,
way.
yeah. Do
Can
it
I
quick.
fit those? Whoa. Oh, no, it wasn't. I thought I'd be clever and fit those sort of stuff. But maybe I can just, if I stretch this out, that might be okay. So that's wide enough. So we need we need a black um, in the sprite section. So I'm gonna cut that out and I'll move that up to there. Um, Now where is? Oh yeah. So that is one of the colors in there. So um,
Right now, you've got a potential problem where you've got white twice in the palette, but in neither case are they in the sprite palette. So that's definitely a waste of an index in the
mm,
general non-sprite.
yep. Um, so let me that's not one. Okay, so that one I just cut. So these are non-sprite colors. So I'll grab that one, that green, and then put it in the sprite area. And then that one I can just put it um, back in there. Green 2 is that one there. So that's already a sprite, or in the sprite range. Brown, that's B, or brown 1, that's B672. That looks like that one.
I'd have to assume color 10 is his main skin tone, FBB6AA.
Yeah,
Yep, pink.
it's
Color 10, you need to put that in the sprite palette. Color
um,
10 in
yep,
Scorpion Engine.
yep. So I will. Sorry, I'm just trying to work out. Um, okay, so this one I need to move down. So I think this one. Oh no, that one is in there. This one isn't. I think.
That
A
might be the lighter gold color in the hair, but I don't think it is.
No, I think that one I can grab. So I'm gonna put that one there, and then I need to grab that. Um, this one here. I'll move that one down. Oh, there's just a bit of a delay between when I copy from
Right,
here because it's reloading all of the assets because it thinks I might have made a change.
right.
Okay, so this D9B700. That's not one of our colors there. So let's grab that one and um, that red one. Oh yeah, so that one I need to grab. That's that red one I need to copy. Oh, was that the one I? That was the one I copied, wasn't it? I don't know why it went to white, but there. Okay. So this C588. Where is that? Oh, that one. C5. Okay, so that one needs to go down somewhere. Looks like that one isn't used. Or is it? Sorry, isn't used by our sprite. So let's grab that, and then I'll copy that one across.
I think the safest color to get rid of to make room for a sprite color down there is color 24. I don't think that super bright pale green is used in the character or the tomahawk.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, but
Because I think maybe that brown color you just moved may have been used by the tomahawk by memory, but maybe not.
possibly, yeah. I think we should check that next. I think if it turns out that there's not enough colors for both the, well, if between the player and the tomahawk there's more than the
16 colors
15,
or 15. Yeah.
15 colors, then we just keep the player, but we don't keep the tomahawk as sprite. But anyway, where
Right.
was I? So I just did that one, swap that one. That F00 is not in our sprite range. Let's see. This DBB. Oh, that one is already okay. That yellow needs to move down. So let's grab that. And let's move that one around. And put that one back. So now we're on to that pink one. I think that was one you mentioned earlier. This one here.
Color 10. Yeah,
Yep.
that's
And
critical skin color.
Yep. And as you say, that 92 isn't needed in
Right.
our sprite range. So let's grab that one. And I think that just leaves us with that strange white that's only
Yes.
slightly different. In fact, on an OCS Amiga, that's going to be
The identical. Yeah.
yeah.
To the human eye, even if that weren't the case, even on 24-bit systems, it's a wasted color. Probably same thing right now. If you notice, we have 3 basically black to the human eye: color 31, color 16, and color 0.
Hmm.
So there's definitely some room for optimization in this palette.
Yep. Now, having said that, there is a performance boost from having color 0 as black
Right.
because there's fewer
The
copper
border.
instructions, and we
Right.
do need it in the sprite. So that double up, I think, is sort of unavoidable.
But the triple up, the color 16 and color 31 is a thing. Like a color can serve as transparent in the sprites. Color 16 does not have to be black. So another color could go there is my point.
Yep.
That's visibly distinct to the human eye. But anyway, that's not relevant to what we're doing at this moment.
Okay, so I'll grab that. Now, I think what I've done is I have rearranged it so the Tom colors are down here.
Yeah, I don't notice anything that's obviously missing.
I guess we'll
Although
probably.
I'm a little surprised that color 9 is not the darkest color in his hair. The 7D 6D00.
Yeah, so so that one is B6. So this one here.
Oh, well, what about the under the chin? Is that that's that one? Like the line under his skin? It's used as the darkest skin tone?
So that
Nope,
the
over
darkest
the darkest color,
is
brown color.
this one, which is the
Yes.
same one. B67.
Okay.
Anyway, I guess yeah, it should be apparent when we actually run it.
Right, exactly.
And so let's have another look at where are we?
While I was away, did you answer Predsetta's latest question about Tales of Gorguth? Or Gorluth, I mean. Sorry.
No.
Or
So
Gorluth.
sorry, I hadn't seen it until just now.
Yeah.
Um. Are the old Tales of Goliath Castle going to be converted back to Scorpion? Yeah. The answer is yes, but I'm not really sure of a timeline for that. It's been so long since I worked on the backbone and ported for Scorpion that it's probably quite broken and could definitely be improved to, take advantage of the latest Scorpion features. Yeah, I think it's just whenever we get around to it. I did say to Vidi that basically, the longer we wait for to actually do the conversion, the better it's going to be because Scorpion's going to be faster and more features, and so he hasn't really been pushing for those remastered Scorpion versions of Tales of Gula, but we will come back to it, uh, one day or another. Anyway, so I think there was some more. So we've got these actor Tom animations, and we'll set those to auto sprites. Um, I think there's another set which are just instead of actor Tom, these are just called Toms. So I'm gonna change those to. Oh, now that one I might ignore that one actually, because that looks
Let
like it's
that
a
stay a Bob.
fairly distinct. It
Yep.
has. Actually, I'm not even sure if it does have unique colors because those pinks and browns look like they could be. I'll leave it just because if you did, then the frame rate's going to be the last thing you're worrying about.
Unless the frame rate is so bad, it takes forever before you can start playing
Oh,
again.
now this one, the Tomahawk's actually part of the.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there's also the skate one, which has like a purple and things that we don't have.
Right, for the helmet.
Yeah, it might be just that purple actually.
If you really needed to, you could make that helmet a child. But then if it
Actually, is
were,
that purple even on the
that's a great question. I don't see it in the palette.
Yeah, let's have a look at it.
It
It
might be
might
one
be,
of those
yeah,
illusions, optical illusions.
possibly. So that's 4949AA. Is that purple in the palette?
And if not, did we
Oh
accidentally
no,
get
it
rid
is.
of
It
it
is
while
there.
juggling?
It is
Okay, it's
there.
an optical illusion.
Yep.
It looks
So
way less purple against this background color.
I'm gonna. So I've only got 10 colors recorded there.
Yep.
It's probably. I haven't set that one as a sprite anyway. I probably should set it as a sprite because I figured that that
We can
skateboard
squeeze it in there.
is. Yeah, I just wonder if there's any other colors that are. I didn't think there was any other colors there that. No,
If
because
the red
his
is
color.
already in there, I think you're
Yeah, his.
good.
Oh, what's this one? That, maybe we have that already. I don't know, but yeah. Okay, so we'll rearrange it so that 4949AA. It's purple. Um, and then let's see if what's one we can steal. So is that
I
B?
assume that teal, that color 20, I don't think that's used in any of the sprites.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it is. Okay, so I'll grab that one.
And again, most of the time to the human eye, not that it's relevant right now, it's probably so similar to color 5 that you could just use one color for both things. But again, that's
Hmm.
not something worth worrying about for this stream.
Okay. Oops. Let's fix that. Okay. Well, I probably yeah, we should have a look at that tomahawk actually. Um,
Yeah, it looks like we've already got the gray that it uses in the sprite palette, so that's good news. But I thought I saw some instances where the tomahawk was darker.
yeah, and I think that could have been from because some
Palette
of these are
issues.
set. Yeah, actually,
Yeah,
I'm gonna make sure all of these are on auto sprite
right.
instead of only sprite. So Prezetta Lemon Amiga mentioned the Street Fighter One
Yes.
conversion. Yeah, I'm not sure what Capcom, if they're even going to take notice, or if they do, what they're going to say. It is worth noting that there's already an enhanced version of Street Fighter One for Mugen called. It's just called Street Fighter One, like not Street Fighter. It's called Street Fighter One, and that's an enhanced version of the original Street Fighter game for PC that fixes all of the problems with the original game. So, um,
But
it,
obviously doesn't run on Amiga.
yeah, obviously doesn't run on Amiga. So yeah, basically there's already kind of a version of what um, is it Muhammad Malik who's working on it. There's already kind of a version of what he's doing that Capcom apparently haven't responded to. So maybe it'll be okay.
And that's for a much bigger audience. Amiga
Mm,
is such a tiny niche audience that the idea that a big company like Capcom is going to give a crap is much less likely
mm,
for a tiny market, especially since he's not almost certainly not planning to try to turn a profit on it.
mm,
Whereas if you're making something for Windows, and the more litigious companies are more worth worrying about, like Nintendo themselves. Um, but it's still a concern. But
mm.
I mean, I've seen that happen with other people's fan game projects where they got shut down after years of working on something, which is pretty crappy and often ends up really bad press for that company to shut down a fan project. And sometimes it goes the opposite way and turns out great for everybody. Where the Sonic game was, Sonic, what was that called?
Oh, Sonic
In,
Mania.
yes, it was started as a complete fan game, and then Sega made a deal with them to make it official, if I remember correctly.
Um,
Yeah, I doubt Capcom will mind, as Amiga Cami said. Also, hello to Morgan Just Games.
um, okay, so we are getting close to the color limit, but I think we can actually squeeze it in
Yeah,
for both the tomahawk and the player. So that's gray.
yeah.
Notably, it uses maybe it's just no, I thought it used white, like pure white. That was just because I did a flattened it
White
and
background. Yeah.
yep. Okay, so there's what does it come down to? Okay, so that's exactly 15 for the player and the tomahawk.
I wonder if that's a coincidence, or even on the original arcade hardware, I
Mm,
assume that the Tomahawk and the player just shared the same sprite, 16 color sprite palette.
yep.
So that works out great for us.
Welcome, Morgan Just Games. Yeah, the Commodore 64 version is the one that I played the most myself. I can't say I ever finished it, but I know I beat some of the bosses, but I don't think I ever got to the end. Um, okay, so Right, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna, if they're in this bottom range, I'm just gonna mark them as X. So this,
Meaning done. Yep.
yep. So this 700. Okay, so that one needs to be done. This
Is that
over.
really dark blue used for the player or the Tomahawk? Color
Oh
17?
no, it isn't. So actually, I will
Yep.
swap that now.
Yep.
I thought that was done, but it's actually not because it's 16 rather than that is still outside the range. So let's grab that one. Um, oh, sorry, Morgan. Just to be clear, this is not my own project. I'm just doing some optimizations on Wonderboy, both as a favor to
Acid bottle? Right.
yeah, both as a favor to Acid Bottle, but also this is a good opportunity to experiment and also to show other people how we can do optimizations in Scorpion Engine. Um, Morgan was also asking if the final game will have a one button option, and it looks like yes, because um, what we've got here is that fire to jump, so you can play with the two button joystick, or we've got up to jump. So if you've only got a one button joystick, you push up on your joystick to jump, and um,
So it'll work
other,
in either case.
yeah, or you push the button to the the joystick button to throw the tomahawk. Griffin
Griffin on
says
Twitch says you. Yep, go ahead.
your voice is getting lower and lower in volume, Eric. I can't explain that.
I think that tends to happen in streams and stuff like that. People just wind down, or if they get distracted in debugging or focus on what they're thinking, people
Okay, yep,
tend to get quieter and quieter
yep.
or more
So
mumbly.
it's more. So it's me getting quieter rather than a technical issue where something's
Yeah,
turning down. Okay, all right, yep. Okay, so
I
can
have a feeling.
live with I can live with that if it was my fault. But if it's a technical problem where I can't really solve it, then
Yeah, I
that's
don't
something
think
different.
that's the case. I think
Uh,
it's just a human condition type thing.
yep.
By the way, Pritzetta, thank you for thanking me for helping that guy that's working on that Street Fighter port with the palette. I can't even help myself. I love at least trying to be helpful. Sometimes it can get obnoxious because I offer help when it's not asked for. But in this case, he seemed to be very appreciative, and I'm so obsessive with color optimization and optimizations in general. I love the challenge, so I really love helping. And pixel art and color optimization are kind of my thing. It's what I'm most obsessed with when it comes to um, that side of game development anyway.
Okay. Um, Now this one needs to be moved down. I don't think this really bright green is used.
Yeah, I was just going to say color 18 probably is not used by
Yep.
the Tomahawk or the player.
Okay. So let's move that into a non-sprite, and then when it was that lighter green, let's grab that. So that's one of the Tomahawk colors. Put that down there, and then let's put our non-sprite color into that range.
Yep. Now see this, I'm glad you have color 18 and 19 right near each other, because would it really have made a big difference to the Tomahawk if they had used color 19 in it instead of color 18?
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm just talking about optimizing your color usage for a low color game. Um, there, to me, Wonder Boy looks like a 16 color game, even though it's a 32 color game.
Where is that? Oh yeah, no, that one's there. Yellow is there. I think all of these. Yeah, I think we are okay now. Oh,
It,
except no, that one. That one we need. That's the last one we need to move. I think.
which one? When you say that one, dark
The
red?
16. Yep. So I know that's
Oh,
nearly black, but it's not quite black.
So
Um,
I would just swap it with color 31, which is pure black. Like I said,
uh,
there's like a wasted color.
um,
Or do you
no.
think one of the sprites, like the Tomahawk, uses pure black as well, which would be super wasteful? I can't imagine.
Yeah, I think it's. Uh, I thought it was in here that
Oh,
somewhere.
yeah. Yeah, that outline is pure black. It was red 000.
Okay, where did I get the? Oh no, it was the tomahawk. I think it was the tomahawk. Yeah. Okay, so you see this color on the tomahawk that is
Yeah.
not black. That's
Yeah,
slightly
that's
red.
silly. To the human eye,
Um.
there's no distinction.
mm.
Like
Um.
it would be silly to even not call that pixel perfect to the arcade at that point. A fast moving tomahawk using a color that to the human eye is pure black and wasting a whole color index for it to me is crazy. But I guess leave it to Acid Bottle to decide that. But
mm. Anyway, this one here is not used, so that will be the
right,
final gap. So we should. So all of these colors in that range come from the tomahawk or the
player.
yeah. So if we run it now, and hopefully it just runs, um, but let's see what it looks like. I'm wondering if it being a sprite is going to possibly affect the uh, we did our optimizations for the fruit because the cleanup, the changes to the number, I don't think it covers the entire tiles for the fruit. So if I'm not if I'm not wiping out the bottom half of the fruit with the player's bob, then it might cause an issue. But we'll find out
Right, right.
in a second.
In which case, it should just be a matter of switching the fruit to its normal drawing mode for 2 frames before you
Mm.
get rid of it. While you're running this, Morgan just game said he's always preferred up for jump. I would say it
Mm.
would depend on several things. Acid Bottle wants us to be as close to arcade perfect. I assume that there was a jump button in the arcade version,
Yeah.
but I could be wrong. Also, some games, obviously, you really need the extra input of having a second button for jump because things like Castlevania, where up and attack throws your projectile weapon, um, and things like Mario, where you want the extra kind of fidelity in the control. Although for fighting games like King of Fighters or Street Fighter, I definitely prefer up for jump.
Mm.
So theoretically, this player is a sprite right now. Is there an easy way on the emulator to verify that?
Yep. We can go MB0, which turns off the bit planes. Oh, now that's interesting. I didn't expect the snail to be a sprite.
Oh, wow.
That might have been done accidentally, and I don't think we got enough. Well, I don't think the snail has all the colors. I'm not sure what it's called. It's not actually. Oh wait, no, there is a snail. Is there snail dead? Yeah, okay. I think I'm gonna turn those off because I don't. Uh,
Oh, yeah, they do
don't.
use colors from the player, except for
Yeah.
that. Is that dark red not in the sprite palette? Or is it?
I don't think that. Yeah, I think it might be one of these reds. Yeah. Okay. So I think
Yeah,
I'll make an executive decision and make those not sprites.
right.
Because yeah, it looked like I think like the shell was just one color.
Well, one color plus that dark color, red, and
Mm.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I did see the fruit did have the bug that I was worried about, where
gotcha.
um,
So you'd have to
let's see.
tweak the code to switch the render mode and then yield before you do the other stuff to switch
Yeah.
it to the score animation.
Basically. So let's actually I might so that changes fruity effect. I'm gonna make a code block to so pre-collect fruit. In fact, I'm gonna grab all of that, and on our pre-collect fruit, I'm going to add a condition, and I'm just going to say if var actor var 6 is oh actor var 5. Okay, var 5 is the last one.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I feel because the 6 one is
5
tag.
because it starts at 0.
No, because it
Oh,
starts at 1, but it used to be var 1 to var 6, but then I changed var 6 into the tag, which
there
is
we
a
go.
little
Okay.
distinct.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to say if active var 5 is not 0, return. I'll make a note there just to say we've already collected this fruit. I will set that variable that we're using, so actor var 5 will be set it to true, and then
And this is because you cannot turn the collision off for a particular frame, right? Only for an animation. And the animation doesn't change immediately, so you need to do
yeah,
this.
yep,
If the animation changed instantly, you could theoretically just turn off the collision on the animation.
absolutely. So now what I'll need to do for these, I'll need to add it to A-Fry. So I'm gonna, I will change that because I've got fruity effects in the uh, um, I've got the sound I think in that code block. The reason why I'm doing inline rather than go sub is because um, it if I do a go sub, then it gets confused by the yield statement because it doesn't know
Right.
after it's waited a couple of frames, then all the code, well, where the code is looking at has changed, so it has no idea where to go back to. But if we do an inline, that's one way of just
Right.
reusing that code everywhere. Um,
And this isn't just a preferred thing anymore. This is like if you have a go sub with a yield, it'll literally throw you an error message if you try to run the game, right? Like
yeah.
it's something you need to fix. Okay.
Um, so what I will do is I'll basically do that. Let's paste that and then let's delete those.
That was a moment where you got really quiet. I think in that instance, maybe you moved your head away further
Oh,
from your
okay,
microphone.
sorry.
No problem.
And I think this was another one. So, actually, I should leave a note for Acid Bottle for what this actually does. So I'll add a line that's just a comment, and I'm just going to say this spends 2 frames clearing the fruit um, for changing to the score object. Okay, well, I guess it's ready for another try. And I'll play through maybe the first couple levels, but I think unless there's any major bugs, probably a good place to leave it for now.
While you're running that, this stream reminds me of a great expression where if you're holding a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And the variant of it is you could tell I'm the artist. Every optimization I talked about or that I was saying, hey, we could do this was from a pixel art point of view. Like, oh, if you move this cloud a little bit, this doesn't overlap, or oh, you could change this color. And then every
Yeah.
optimization you were doing was on the programmer side.
Mm. Okay. Sorry, just wait for it to finish loading.
This is the moment where the delay of watching the stream is the most obvious because I can hear you starting to play the game and on the stream it's still black screen.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think this is looking pretty good. I'm playing pretty well. Uh, it. Um, I mean, I guess it's subjective, but it does feel like.
You
Although,
should
yeah,
probably get to
that's
level 2 to
yeah,
really push it.
yep. Um, oh, I did notice there were some. Oh, okay. No, that was a bit weird. There was I think I used a tomahawk or something on a um. Yeah, there was some glitch somewhere. It was an explosion or something, and it looked like it
Yeah, I
was
saw the
missing.
gray puff cloud.
But I don't know what that was from exactly. But in general, it's looking
Yeah,
okay.
I think you should get to level 2 and we should see how performance is, and then maybe in another stream or something you can hunt down that
Hmm.
glitch.
Oops. Okay, messed that up. Um, I'm not very good at this game, but I
Well,
think
it's
the
always so much harder to play when you're trying to focus on programmery stuff.
yeah. So just because I am sort of keeping one eye open for
Glitches, yeah.
yeah, and we did see a couple, but I'm not quite sure. I'm assuming. Well, I could be wrong about that. I'm assuming it's some of those glitches we're seeing are sort of from optimizing something too much somewhere,
Right.
or it might be from like because we had that fruit setup, that fruit spawn where it disables the clearing. Maybe
Right.
there's something that uses that doesn't use the the code we put in to reverse.
Yeah, exactly.
But I
That's
mean,
what I was thinking.
I'll send Acid Bottle an email after all this, and I'll just say, hey, if you notice these bugs, and not quite sure what, well, if you can, sort of say where the
Yeah,
bugs
what's
were.
happening? Yeah.
Oh, now that was definitely something. I think there may be a fruit. Oh, yeah, okay, so that fruit is being overwritten by the cloud. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that might be the main culprit is uh
When one of the
'cause-
fruits that isn't redrawing gets covered
yeah,
up by something.
yeah. So I think maybe to be safe, we should not completely undo the optimization. Just
Right.
remove the part that disables the renderer, but keep the part that yeah.
Turns
In
off
fact,
the drawing.
yeah. In fact, I'm going to do that right now.
All right. Otherwise,
Um,
performance-wise, I think I'm noticing a big difference in level
yeah.
2.
I think Uh, I mean, it wasn't 100%, but I think it was a lot better than what it was.
Yeah.
Though whether or not it's going to, we'll lose that when, um, just say, uh, optimizations below maybe a step too far. Fruit disappears if overlapped by clouds, etc.
I mean, it could be a situation where you could literally do a check with a variable, like set in the level editor. Okay, I know this one's going to get overlapped by a clouds. So
Mm.
set one of its variable to be like, don't hyper optimize me, and then it wouldn't use this
Oh,
hyper optimized method.
yeah. We could also do something like, if we, actually
If
no,
the
we
cloud overlaps it, then turn
yeah.
its render mode. Yeah.
Unfor- hmm.
You could still have
Unfortunately,
a
that
frame
might
or
be
two
quite
that are
tricky
glitchy.
because
Yeah.
the cloud is not a projectile, or it's a
Right,
platform. We
right.
can't turn it into a projectile, and projectiles are the only way that one actor can collide with another.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, so
But
it would
yeah,
be you what you could do is what I said. You reserve one of the variables or the flag. No, or no, I think the variable makes more sense.
mm,
Um, to be like, okay, if variable one is 0 or -1 or 1 or whatever, then don't use the optimization. And then for all of the fruit that while he's designing the levels, if okay, this is definitely going to get overlapped by the cloud platform, then he could switch that variable to 1, and then that particular one wouldn't use the really strong optimization.
mm,
Like it could be the case where that level of crazy optimization might be needed to get this game running really smoothly on Amiga 500 with
mm,
2 megs of RAM.
um, yeah. Well, I think we've probably gotten it to the point where your further optimizations are really those uh
Decisions that Acid Bottle has to
yeah,
partake in.
but also like we're getting down uh like tweaking pixels and things like that.
Yeah,
Sort of
yeah.
those really fine uh changes. It did. Oh, actually, I do wonder if some of these frame drops might be just because OBS does put a bit of strain on my PC, but
Right.
generally it seems to be pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
definitely noticed a big difference in level 2. The first time you played it through
mm,
before we made any changes, there were some
yep.
real moments where when you were jumping in the air, like it was like you were in water.
Mm,
And I didn't notice that at all this most recent playthrough of level 2. And level 1 seems really smooth for the most part.
mm.
But yeah, I guess the next step for Acid Bottle will be, like there is the platformer thing we didn't get to, the platform thing we didn't get to,
Mm,
making it and then moving the clouds.
yep.
That could make a huge difference to level 2, in fact.
Mm,
And then the other thing is going through, like that message that Scorpion creates automatically, like this thing's 17 pixels wide, reduce it by a pixel and all that
yeah.
stuff.
Yep.
But yeah,
That would
that
also help. Um, Actually, I know what I want to do to close the stream is I want to look up that a playthrough of that Thunderboy, just to see how it compares with
with this,
what Acid Bottle's done. Um, oh, um, yeah, it did chug a bit there, but it
nowhere near
wasn't
as
too
noticeable
bad.
as the first one,
Mm,
first playthrough. I mean,
yeah,
but it's
and
like
that
it's to the point now where I really think doing that change to the platforms is going to really make it very, very. acceptably smooth,
Mm.
even on an Amiga 500. Like that combined with the really easy fitting of things into 16 by 16, that visually won't affect it at all. Yeah, there's where I noticed quite a bit of slowdown.
Yeah, and I think that was a combination of the big clouds as well as the
Jumping octopus.
yeah going behind the oh yeah, and there's so many actors all at once in that bit,
Yeah.
but um
I'll bet you there's a clever way to make it, even with Engine's current features, to get rid of the need for the foreground water, because that's definitely the other big problem for this level.
yeah, I
Oh,
mean
you know what? Oh my goodness. It's a shame. I think we just used up all the sprites, but that bottom whole thing of sprite, it could easily be a repeating sprite, the water.
of course
And then you could even parallax it and animate it if you wanted to.
yeah, but
Yep.
we
Leftover
don't have the
sprites.
colors available.
Yep.
Yeah, because we'd need like at least 3 colors at
Yep.
the end. But yeah, that oh, actually, I wonder if that bit at the end was supposed to be like walking inside there. I bet it probably
Right.
was.
Oh, good point.
Um,
Yep.
and that could. Let me see if that's an actor or just a foreground. Okay, so yeah, that's in the foreground. If it was made an actor that was a sprite and those colors happened to be in the sprite, then that would be another way of doing it. But otherwise,
Yep.
I don't know.
I
I
think
mean, I
it's
almost
close.
wonder
I
if
think his hair
yeah,
colors are that.
possibly.
So,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I almost wonder if so we've got this OCS version, and then maybe for you could do an enhanced version when nothing's a sprite.
Yeah.
It's so because I mean, I guess on an A1200 you wouldn't need anything to be a sprite and still have full performance.
Right.
Um, um, oh, Mixel's Lab is back. It sounds like slept through the actual work, but definitely watch the video on demand. Um, and yeah, I think that will do for tonight. Oh, actually, I guess the other thing, I wonder if that because when Wonderboy walks through the door at the end, it's sort of like a forced animation. So I think that's a different actor. So that could be given different animation that isn't a sprite.
Right.
That's another way it could be solved.
Right. And it could
Um,
still be using the same art, right? Even though it's not a sprite.
yep.
Yeah.
So I will check in.
Yep. But yeah,
Uh,
I have a feeling if with the platforms doing that fix, making them not clear and moving the background clouds,
hmm.
that and the water, if we figure out a trick to make the water not have to be a foreground layer, I
Yep.
think it would run quite well.
So I'll mention to Acid Bottle, we've got this disable clearing code block that if the clouds A have that turned on and B have enough of a buffer around the outside that enough of a buffer of blue pixels around the outside that they wipe up after themselves,
Right.
that should that I guess that probably would solve it. And now as the final thing we do tonight, so I'm going to go on YouTube.
Look at Thunder Boy.
Yep. I guess this is going to be a bit meta for anyone that's already watching this on YouTube. Um,
Let's make ourselves feel
okay.
better about.
What was it? Thunder Boy. What's the name of it? Thunder Boy Amiga. Um, Okay. All right. So there's actually a long play that runs for 10 minutes. That's doesn't sound like a
Not a
very
long game.
hmm. Oh, that I don't know if you can hear that, but it's not
Well, I'm
not
sure
good.
everyone else can, but I have the stream muted.
Yeah. Okay, so that's
Oh,
some fantastic
pixel art.
yeah, MS Paint quality. Go for
Hey,
it.
don't blame the tool.
Yeah.
I could do great stuff with MS Paint.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, this is it
Oof.
actually looks fairly smooth, but
Yes, just the art is really, and obviously it's not even close. That like the level design is not trying to match the arcade. At least as far as I can tell, I'm definitely not someone who's ever played the arcade game for more than a couple of seconds. But it certainly looks extremely different from
yeah.
the Wonder Boy
Uh,
remake that Acid Bottle is making.
looks a bit racist to be honest, because you got this white kid going through the village
No,
killing all these.
it's an homage to that uh, Peter Pan Disney
Oh.
Peter Pan. So
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna fast forward to like the final boss fight or whatever, and then see what the ending is. I'm not expecting much, to be honest.
yeah, I mean this to me, I mean was this wasn't actually commercially released, right? This was like someone's
No, this
fan
is
game.
no, this is a. I'm pretty sure it's a commercial release.
Oh,
I
oh
think
my
it's by
goodness.
the maybe not the same developers, but at least the same. Wait, did they just
Publisher?
walk past the final boss? There's like a it's like a giant dragon, and they just walks past it.
See, this is one of those circumstances where like I had assumed that this was a
Like a
just
PG
like
game.
a
Oh,
yeah, public domain
okay.
fan game.
Oh,
And in those circumstances where someone's just doing it out of the love for making games and stuff like
yeah.
that, and it's
I
like
mean,
their little kid
yeah.
nephew or something
I mean,
fancies themselves an artist and they're 11 or 12 years old and you let them make the graphics, that's
yeah.
fine.
I mean, if it was
But
like a Amos game back in the day, you
yeah,
could sort of.
be
But let
impressed by
me
the
look.
smoothness
Okay,
of it. I mean,
so box. So this is the box. Oh, okay, so it's by 1987 Rainbow Arts.
that is
So
shameful. That was actually published and sold. Like, that is shameful.
hmm. Having said that, it does say 1987. So that would have been amongst, or well, copyright 1987, but year of first release 1988. So that's at least a couple of years. Well, that's about a couple of years before like Shadow of the Beast.
Right. Early in the
Um,
Amiga's game library life, but still,
yeah, and I
that,
suspect the
yeah.
okay, so the developer only worked on that one game. Um, the developer and the artist. I thought that maybe like there are a handful of Amiga developers that made some like bad games for Teotex back in the day,
Yeah.
but then they went on to make games that were really well received.
Yeah.
It seems like this team they basically just did this game and they didn't do anything else for the Amiga. Yep.
uh, oof.
Um,
Yeah, like I was expecting to see just like one person in the credits. Like they did the code, they did the graphics, they did the sound. You know what I mean?
um,
But there was a dedicated graphic artist, and
um,
yeah,
Griffin mentioned Black Tiger, which is a game that
yeah,
comes up every now and then as something that's mentioned as a big disappointment.
right.
It looks like this is another. I'm guessing it's another TTX game. At least it's US gold, and yeah, that's uh,
Now, see, this is different. This one, it looks fine
mm,
pixel art wise, and it performs terribly. This is the
it's
opposite
the
problem.
opposite. Yeah. Yeah, I
This
mean,
looks
I
like
can.
they ripped the arcade graphics.
Mm, yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, it looks like there are a lot.
A lot of things on
Yeah, a lot
screen.
of lot of things on
Yep.
screen at once, but it almost feels like most of the time there isn't. So it's almost like they set the frame rate to be low so that
They
it never
capped it
goes
super
down.
low. Yeah.
But it just means it would be forgivable to a degree if it slowed down when you had lots of projectiles.
Right.
Um, and those projectiles, like if they were Amiga hardware sprites, you could use like you could almost use multiplexing with those ones.
Right.
It's the sort of
Never on the same vertical
scan line,
space.
yeah.
Yeah. But like this is the perfect example. Almost certainly this was a simultaneous Atari ST port. The
Mm,
palette screams of it. Like this does not look like it's using the Amiga hardware at all. I'd be amazed if there were any sprites being used. And this looks like a 16 color sprite based on the
mm,
Atari ST's color depth.
yeah. And yeah. Also, you notice there's a lot of there's some UI stuff that overlaps the screen. Um,
Oh yeah.
so
Yep.
the timer, the health,
Yep.
all of unless those are done with sprites, and as you say, they're probably not. But
Huge performance hit.
yeah, those are going to be blitted every frame and then cleaned up every frame.
Yep.
Um,
Huge waste.
yeah, yeah.
Like what benefit
There's
is it besides being less readable that it's overlapping the graphics?
mm,
And then
no.
you've got a super text heavy scoreboard on top. Is that really that important? You know what I mean? Like that's the HUD stuff should have been moved up into the HUD, and the
Mm,
definitely this is not using the custom Amiga hardware worth of crap.
mm,
Like look at games that look at stuff like Hybris and Battle Squadron with way more
mm,
things on screen in 32 color mode, and it runs silky smooth.
yeah. Oh. Well, so I think this is a good place
Yep.
to leave it for the day. I think I've checked that all in. I'll need to write an email to Acid Bottle to explain some potential things that he might want to consider. Or,
Yep.
but anyway, well, thanks for joining me for the last, Jesus, nearly 3 hours.
Wow.
Um, and yep. So cheers, Mike, and thanks
Yep.
to everyone in chat for coming by. Hopefully it was interesting, and if you're working on a Scorpion game, maybe it's given you some ideas about how certain things can be optimized. I guess at some stage we might want to do another stream where we look at as Mike was mentioning, the make the clouds more optimized by making it so that they don't. Um,
Overlap the
yep.
platform clouds. Yep.
Hmm.
All right.
Anyway.
Awesome.
Yep. Cool.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, actually, I will do the raid. Let's see who I can raid. Okay, Amiga Live. I normally raid Amiga Live because they're just about the only channel that's active at this time. So, might as well do that. I'll trigger that now. Okay, catch you later.